RJ Sahi's podcast, presented by RWBC, Partners in Business, Aroma Shack, Aharya Varna, Emerald Splash Consultancy, Gardens Clay Miniatures, Nayamika Designs, Costume Partner, Vasti Collections, Catering Partners, Caldi Coffee, Eastham, London.
ஹாய் ஹலோ வணக்கம் மக்களே, நான் உங்கள் ஆர்ஜே சஹி. நீங்கள் இணைந்திருப்பது RWBC ஆர்ஜே சஹிஸ் பாட்காஸ்ட். என்னடா இன்னைக்கு சாரியில வந்திருக்கேன்னு பாக்குறீங்களா? ஆமாங்க, தமிழை பத்தி பேசணும்னா நம்ம கலாச்சார உடையில தானே வரணும். ஸோ இன்னைக்கு ஒரு அமேசிங்கான பர்சன் தான் என்னுடைய கெஸ்டா வந்திருக்காங்க. அவங்க மொரீஷியஸ் தமிழர். தமிழ் மீது ஒரு காதலனே சொல்லலாம், அந்த அளவுக்கு பற்றுள்ளவர். அவர் தமிழை பற்றி ஒரு புத்தகமும் வெளியிட காத்திருக்கிறார். அது மட்டும் இல்லாம அவங்க தமிழ் சார்ந்த எக்ஸிபிஷனும் நடத்த போறார். சோ அதெல்லாம் என்ன ஏதுன்னு அவர்கிட்ட கேட்டு தெரிஞ்சு கொள்ள போறோம். அது மட்டும் இல்லாம அவர் எமரல்ட் ஸ்பிளாஷ் ஒரு கன்சல்டன்சியும் வச்சிருக்கார். சோ இந்த விஷயங்கள் எல்லாமே அவரை பத்தி இன்னும் அவர்கிட்டயே கேட்டு தெரிஞ்சுக்கலாம். வாங்க அவர் வெல்கம் பண்ணலாம். Welcome Soodesh.
Welcome Sahi.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have given a small introduction about you. So please, can you say something about yourself to our people?
Of course. So I've always been a very curious child, and as I was growing up, always curious about things that didn't work, that maybe needed fixing. And I think when that sort of misalignment happens, when you notice misalignment and you want to straighten things out and put things right, that kind of started to reflect over time and in my own career.
Okay.
Hence why I developed Emerald Splash Consultancy. So by profession, I'm a consultant. I set up Emerald Splash Consultancy, but there's also that other part of me that has always been curious about heritage, culture, Tamil Muri. These are the things that I really want to start bringing to the forefront for the Mauritian community.
Lovely. So, back home. So, which language did you speak at home with your parents and family?
So, interestingly, my appa, he's Tamil Mauritian.
Okay.
Amma, she's actually Irish.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So she was Irish, and they met back in the 1960s. Appa, he grew up in a very sort of, I guess, quite a staunch Tamil household where it was all about you had to learn Tamil by default. You had to learn how to sing Tamil by default. So they were a very musical family. However, the only thing that didn't happen is conversation. So spoken Tamil, they never spoke Tamil at home. Pati and Tata, they always spoke Tamil amongst themselves when they didn't want their children to understand.
Okay, the secret language.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it never rubbed off on them. Amma, when she got married to Appa, she became, she got married at a time when you had no choice but to be Tamil. When you
Okay.
it was the 1960s, you had to wear your pottu tali metti, that was the way she was. And she adapted, she really took on the culture, she began to cook the food, and and that's how I was raised. So I was raised in a household where that's what we are by default. I am born into it, therefore I am. Never spoke it.
Oh wow, this is an interesting story. So, and how did the interest come to speak? Because I know myself that you can speak a little, so and you're trying. So how did the interest come up?
So, as a child, as I said, I grew up in a very musical family. So whenever it was going to the Kovil, I grew up learning to sing bhajanams, being part of the kirtanam, the kutam where we will sit down and sing, devadams, tipugar. So I could do all of that as a kid, and it wasn't until I guess as I reached when I became a teenager, what I noticed in Mauritius is that a lot of people were starting to move away from cultural activities, from back in the I guess the 80s when I was growing up, in the 90s, everyone was always so very very connected. Mauritius, had a thriving population, a Tamil population, where they came in as indentured labourers from Tamil Nadu, but they came to build the country up. It came as commerce, so a lot of the commercial activity was developed by them. Port Louis, the capital, is a thriving capital because of their market stalls of saris, of their puja items. So So, and all of that is all, have always historically been owned by Tamils. But then as obviously generations start to come along, people begin to, because the language side they'd become separate from the language side for so long, I guess that sense of identity from a linguistic point of view just became distant, and all of a sudden they became a little bit disconnected.
Okay.
Whereas for me, I always wanted to find a way where, how is it that we can reconnect, our Tamil heritage to Mauritius?
Yeah.
And I thought in the future, when one day I become a father, what are they going to know? How are they going to identify themselves?
Exactly.
And that's when I started to really push forward with it. Yeah.
So do you speak now with your children's Tamil? Do they understand? Are they into learning Tamil?
This is the problem that happened. All four, we have 4 children. நாங்க குழந்தைகள். No, so they all went to Tamil school, and that was, for me, it was important that they went to Tamil school. My wife as well, when she was younger back home, she went to Tamil school. She could read and write it, but very similar to myself.
Wonderful. Okay.
She couldn't speak it, so she'd watch films, but it wasn't something that was spoken between her and her family. So, and that's a common theme that runs in Mauritius. You have a generation that stops talking in Tamil, normally from 3 generations back, and then it gets lost. Now with my children, I started learning Tamil through my elder son.
Amazing.
His name's Tirunyanam, by the way.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
So when he started to go to Tamil school, my wife, she would help him, but then I thought it was important that I tried to kind of jump in there and try to understand how to read, and that's when I taught myself how to read.
Yeah.
Because again, with Tata, he tried to teach me, and it was one of those things where you'd get the karandi thrown at you or something like that if you didn't understand something. It was something that I just didn't pick up with interest, and when my elder son started learning, that's when I thought I need to sit down and try to read and try to write it, and try to read the kurals, because they obviously at school they start learning the tirukural, so trying to get him to memorize those, and even I would sometimes say, remember, you have to remember. That's how I started to learn. Okay. That's how I started to learn how to read. Okay. That's how I started to learn how to write. And it's something that I can do. I can read. You put a passage in front of me and I will be able to read it, but when it comes to speaking it, that's where the struggle happens. And what I'm trying to do is to break that, so that we can actually feel comfortable.
Yes.
I've started doing that with the children, only quite recently, because one of my children said, "Appa, you're sending us to Tamil school, but you don't even speak it at home."
Makes sense.
So how can we continue speaking? And I think that really hit me. That made me think, well, that habit needs to be broken, and or the habit needs to be created rather. So now, when they wake up, for example, I might say, "Kalai vanakkam," or if today with my son, he was picking up his sweets in the shop, and I was like, "Angeru," so I was like, "Angeru," while I was doing something. So I try to introduce words to them because I want it to become a natural thing for them. My eldest is 17, so again, how is that going to happen? Will it ever become natural to him? Kadavul knows.
Oh my God! Seriously, guys, பாத்தீங்களா? அதாவது அவருக்கு தெரிந்தது புரிந்த முறையில் அவருடைய குழந்தைகளுக்கு அந்த எங்களுடைய மொழியை கொண்டு சேர்க்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறார்ல. So hats off, definitely, right? So I'm impressed. So well done for that, and definitely when there is a will, there is a way. So you started and you're into it, and I have heard some words from you. You're doing excellent. So okay. So let's move forward. So you're writing a book. So it's also about our Tamil language, right? So tell us more about this.
So this is something that is very, very dear to me. When, the concept I developed back in 2009, this was, just after our big Tamil Kalyanam, You know, I remember sitting at the hotel on the balcony, and I was just looking at the sea, the ocean, and I was like, oh wow, Kadal, LA, you know, and just thinking of all of that, and I thought there is so much stories that have happened on that very water. So many stories that haven't been told, may never get to be told. And I think I tend to go back and try to think historically, you know, what would have taken place on those very waters. And straight away, I went to my ancestors and I thought, you know, what journey did they have traveling from Tamil Nadu over to Mauritius? What was that like for them? You see, because I think, you know, with family, when you hear your family talk about it, like, you know, I have, you know, we're from a big family. I mean, I have 6 uncles and 6 aunties. And everyone sort of romanticizes about that journey. Oh yes, you know, Tata he used to be in the Nadagam, and he used to tell stories of Nalakanga and on stage. So it would always be how beautiful it was, and how much of a, you know, reminiscent or nostalgic life it was. But no one ever really talks about the hardship, the journey, what that journey was like. What did they go through? How did they you know, how did they establish themselves on an island that was completely strange? What did they leave behind? You know, so that's how I started to develop the concept. And you know, I used to think about, well, what did they speak? How did they speak? I remember my party, for example, whenever she spoke Creole, it was very broken. In, you know, she had that Tamil accent as well, you know. So, you know, she would, you know, look at her sari, and she would talk to my tata, and she'd be like, oh, my sele, I need to put my kosavam on. And, you know, it used to be very, very broken Tamil. And I used to think, well, what did it sound like before their generation? And that's how I developed the concept. I then got in touch with the Mauritius, the Mahatma Gandhi Institute, because what I wanted to do was to really understand, well, there clearly we must be able to find out paperwork and who is who, and you know, who were the first people to arrive from our family. And I was very fortunate enough to be introduced, or on Facebook actually, there's this young man who I started following, and I think he used to be a lecturer in France, I think in Paris, and his niche was the Tamil diaspora. He's from Pondicherry, I think. Pondicherry, yeah. And but he tends to visit all of the islands, the countries where Tamils have, you know, kind of entered during that sort of indentured labour phase. And when I got in touch with him, he then put me in touch with someone, and then I managed to, you know, have a lot of back and forth. Appa was alive at the time, who was in Mauritius, and I managed to get him to bring some paperwork over, like birth certificates and everything. And from just, I think it was my tata's birth certificate, I was able to trace back, and they were able to trace the very first person who arrived to Mauritius from Tamil Nadu, but also his picture as well.
This is amazing. Wow. Okay. Hard work.
It was there was a lot of work, and I remember receiving that picture. I thought, oh my god, you know, this Anna has sent me a JPEG. Obviously there's going to be a picture, and I was thinking, God, what does this man look like? And my God, when I opened that picture, all I thought to myself was, I could see the family resemblance. I could see my chitapa in him. I could see so many of my family members in him. I just thought, wow, this is amazing. But the hardships then I went to go into, well, what were the stories? Because then, you know, they had documentation about, for example, my great grandmother. So I mean, God, party, you know, there's a party. I'm trying to think back. And you know, the story was that she didn't arrive at the same time, but she had a child, so which indicated that she would have been married, she would have left her husband, or maybe she would have been widowed and brought her child with her. But then what they used to do, they used to force them into accommodation together because it was cheaper. So obviously my tata's tata would have been made to live with her, and that's how they created their generation. So, you know, it wasn't a pleasant, I'm sure there were sanitation issues, there were sanitation issues, I'm not going to lie. There have been been there was a revolution, there've been protests during the generations, but even before that, it was just so interesting to understand what their background was. I mean, it even had it down to, and I know this is something that can be quite taboo and we don't like to discuss. I certainly don't like to talk about it, but even down to their caste, what that was. I always remember thinking to myself, Mauritius has, there used to be a bit of a caste system in Mauritius as well, but I always used to challenge that, because I used to think, well, how can you consider yourself to be A, B or C when you all had that similar journey? You were dumped on a ship together, you were brought over together. It's impossible. But that aside, I that's what really started my journey off, and it wasn't until I think probably, and I'm talking about something that 17 years ago this was, and it wasn't until November that I started writing the book. I had notes, I'd taken notes, I'd taken lots of notes and jotted ideas down, and then I thought I need to sit down and I need to write, and that's what I did. And the idea that I had back then to what I began to develop as I started writing, completely different. But it was one of those things where I cried throughout writing it. So writing that first chapter, I remember crying, and I remember my son was in the room and he was like, is everything okay? And the reason why is because I got so emotional and it became so intense because I was listening to Opari.
Oh, wow. Okay, now I understand. Yeah, okay.
Because that is an art, I see that as an art form, and it was something that was very, very prominent in Mauritius, where people would get paid to to perform opari. And I just thought I wanted that opening chapter to be that, and it had to be intense and it had to be emotional.
Okay.
And
wow, okay, this is the first time I'm hearing that Mauritius opera is also being paid and you can listen to it, but it's interesting. So மக்களே, ஸோ நடுநடுடன் தமிழையும் பேசி ஆகணும், என்ன அப்பதான் நம்ம இந்த தமிழை வளர்க்கலாம். ஸோ எவ்வளோ ஒரு 17 வருட ஆண்டு காலமா அவர் இந்த ஜேர்னியை ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி, போன வருடம் நவம்பர் தான் அந்த நான் இப்ப எழுதியே தீரணும்ன்றதுக்கு இத்தனை வருடமா ஒவ்வொரு விடயங்களையும் சேகரிச்சு இப்ப வந்திருக்காரு. ஸோ உண்மையிலேயே கேட்கும் போது எனக்கு அவ்வளவு இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கா இருக்கு. கண்டிப்பா அந்த புக் எப்ப வெளிவரும் தான் நான் வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். ஸோ வந்தா கண்டிப்பா நீங்களும் வாங்கி படிச்சு உங்களுடைய நண்பர்கள் அண்ட் தெரிஞ்சவங்களுக்கு நீங்க அதை கண்டிப்பா ரெக்கமெண்ட் பண்ணணும்னு நான் இந்த தருணத்துல கேட்டுக்கிறேன். So Soodesh, so it's really interesting to listen to this. Honestly, I can't wait to read the book. So when can we expect the publishing?
So the idea is for it to be published just after Adi Masam, so I would look at it to be published just maybe sort of around August time. The reason why is because I still have this thing where there are certain months, and again it's a very ritualistic, what it's like, even back home in Mauritius we're like that. Certain months you should really kind of sit down and reflect and not do certain things, and for me that's the kind of time when I should be looking at launching it. But there's still a little bit of work to be done, a little bit of refinement to be done, but that's the deadline that I'm working towards.
I can promise you that our team will be there for your launch, and we will get it published. So because we have to support those kind of great works, and especially it's our Tamil, so எங்களுடைய தமிழை நாங்க தான் பரப்ப வேண்டும். So கண்டிப்பா எல்லாருமே சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுங்க நம்புறோம். Okay, இன்னொரு question அவர்கிட்ட கேட்கலாம். Okay, so it's interesting to listen about your story about writing the book. So I have heard as well that you're planning an exhibition about Tamil culture as well. So what's that about, and when it's going to happen?
Yeah, so this is something, again, what I wanted to do was to really tie the two together, and that the idea of doing an exhibition didn't come about until I think it was before I wrote the book. But then I thought, well, that's what encouraged me to really start writing, because again, when you do more research, more ideas come into your head. So as a child, and I've noticed a lot of Mauritians have this same mentality, okay? And it's not a criticism to Mauritians at all. I think it's just something that as generations have gone by, this is how they feel. They almost feel when they go to the, they obviously in the UK they go to the Murugan mainly, or they might go to the Archway Murugan Temple, because in North London it's a big community over there. But what will happen? They will feel a little bit segregated, or they tend to segregate themselves from the rest of the Tamil community. And this was something that always used to bother me, because I always, for me, it's a case of we are Tamil. Whether we be from Tamil Nadu, whether we be from Tamil Elam, whether we be from Malaysia, whether we be from Singapore, we are Tamil, and that is it. And we should always recognize that we have that. This is what ties us together. But with Mauritians, it used to sadden me that they used to pull themselves away from it. I remember once when I was on Facebook, and there was this young boy who pasted. He's a DJ, and he posted a wedding, a Tamil wedding, because he's from a Tamil family. He posted a wedding on Facebook, and someone was saying, "Oh, but that's a Hindu wedding. It's a Tamil wedding. It's a Hindu wedding according to Tamil rituals." And then he was like, "No, it's a Mauritian wedding."
Okay.
Talking about, boy, no.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do was really try to bring an exhibition that again explained that journey of Tamils from India over to Mauritius, so that people understood what that journey was about, that what we had developed in Mauritius has been based upon Tamilisms. The Creole that we speak in Mauritius, a lot of the words are loan words from Tamil. Like, when we talk about money, kasu, when we talk about curry leaves, karvepile, we call it karipule, kotomili, kotamali, we would talk about...
so it's just slightly different.
It's just slightly different, but a lot of them have been loan words. And a lot of people, even Mauritians don't even know that. Food, for example, we have a lot of street food like gato pima, which is purple vade.
Okay, பருப்பு வடைக்கு மொரிஷியஸ்க்கு போனீங்கன்னா இந்த வார்த்தையை சொல்லுங்க, எனக்கு வாயில நுழையல. Okay.
And it's a national dish. We've got another national dish called urugai. It's
Okay, so I feel like I'm half Mauritian now. Okay.
So a lot of our national dishes, we have putu, we have dose, we have, so all of these have been our national dishes in Mauritius.
So basically we are like different only in our slangs and with the mindset, but all the Tamils are Tamils.
Absolutely. This is exactly it. And it's not only to educate Mauritians, but it's also to educate those who don't know about Tamil Mauritians as well, and how we live, and the fact that we are so culturally connected, because I think that is the thing that always brings us to recognize that we're Tamil. It's unfortunate that younger people are trying to kind of find other things to try and blend in with other cultures. I think there's quite a huge debate at the moment, but I think this seems to be on a international level amongst Tamils anyway, where we always try to find ways of finding identity in other cultures, rather celebrating our own pure culture, blending it into other cultures. I get that, but we also must celebrate us and what makes us different. What is it that makes us different from another person? Not superior, but different. We've got to celebrate that difference. And for me, that's what it's about. It's educating those that, Tamils do exist in Mauritius. We have Korus. We have, I think in the region of 200 Korus in Mauritius.
Wow.
We have, we do the Timidi, which is the walking on fire ritual. We do Kavadi. We do Kavadi, Taipusam Kavadi. We do Sichire Kavadi, Adi Kavadi, Vaikas Kavadi. So we do all of this.
Okay. It's when I listen to this, I'm comparing that a little to Malaysia. Because Malaysian Tamils are doing this similar things, but it's really amazing, interesting.
Definitely, but I think the difference between Malaysian Tamils is that they've still held on to language.
True. Yes, 200%.
And Mauritians, I think Mauritian Tamils and South African Tamils probably are very similar in that we've lost that linguistic ability. There are Mauritian Tamils who have been going over to India. They've been going to the is it the Loyola College in
Loyola
Chennai?
College.
Yeah. So they might do further studies there. They might do sort of like training to refine their own Carnatic, singing, vocal, instrument in the arts. So there have been people who've been going back because there is this consciousness about wanting to reconnect, but more work needs to be done. More work needs to be done.
Definitely very important to know our history. Definitely. Wow, amazing. I don't know what to say. I'm just waiting for the exhibition now and for the book. So I love reading. So there are definitely so many youngsters who listen to the podcast, and definitely you pull them on their side, because now we can see there is a big changes now happening in social media. Before, like our youngsters, they were like tending to be westernized and like more modern. But now I can see like they're coming back.
Yeah.
They research, they sing in Tamil, they rap in Tamil, they do photo shoots, and it's happening. And I think something like this, like bringing a book out and showing the youngsters this kind of interest, we can get back our people, we can get back our language.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay, Soodesh, thank you so much for your great time. Really inspiring, interesting, and I'm damn sure we will have some debates soon, and I really want to invite you at this point. Please come and we will have the debate. It would be about Tamil as well. So you're an asset for this debate, I would say. And congratulations once again, and good luck. And I'm just waiting. Thank you for being here, my guest. Thank you so much. ஓகே மக்களே, இவ்வளோ நேரம் RWBC வழங்கிய RJ Sahi's பாட்காஸ்ட் கேட்டீங்க. ஸோ இங்கிலீஷ் பேசினாலும் தமிழ் அண்டா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நம்ம சுதேஷ் வந்து அவருடைய தமிழ் மீது உள்ள காதலை நம்முடன் பரிமாறினார். ஸோ செமையாக இருந்துச்சுல, நான் ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்காக கேட்டுட்டு இருந்தேன். ஸோ நீங்களும் என்ஜாய் பண்ணியிருக்கீங்கன்னு நான் நம்புகிறேன். ஸோ நீங்களும் வந்து உங்களுடைய ஸ்டோரியை எங்கள் கூட பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளணும்னு ஆசைப்பட்டீங்கன்னா மறக்காமல் RJ Sahi என்ற இன்ஸ்டாகிராம் பேஜ் மற்றும் RWBC ஆஃபிஷியலுக்கு உங்களுடைய மெசேஜை தட்டி விடுங்க. அண்ட் யூடியூப்ல வந்து நாங்கள் பாட்காஸ்ட் அப்லோட் பண்ண போகிறோம். ஸோ மறக்காமல் அங்கேயும் உங்களுடைய லைக், ஷேர் அண்ட் சப்ஸ்கிரைப் மட்டும் இல்லாமல் அப்படியே அந்த பெல்லையும் கிளிக் பண்ணிடுங்க. அப்போ தான் டான்ட்டு நாங்கள் போடுற வீடியோஸ் வரும். ஸோ சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்க, சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுங்க. ஸோ இதை மாதிரி பல விஷயங்களை நாங்கள் வெளில கொண்டு வரணும்னு ஆசைப்படுறோம். அடுத்த இன்னொரு பாட்காஸ்ட்ல உங்களை சந்திக்கும் வரை உங்களிடமிருந்து விடை பெற்று செல்லும் நான் உங்கள் RJ Sahi. நன்றி, வணக்கம்.